Hello, everybody, and welcome to Tour Pro Talks, the last of the season. I'm Genevieve White, travel and tourism copywriter, and I'm absolutely delighted to be joined today by Mitch Bach. Welcome, Mitch.
I'm delighted to be closing out the season.
Yeah, well, you are our very special guest. So I think you will all know who Mitch is. But just if you don't, for whatever reason, he is a co founder of Tourpreneur. And you will also maybe have heard of him through Trip School, who's trained thousands and thousands of tour guides. He has been described by one of our very own Tour Pro Talks community as a ray of sunshine. We've only just met. This is the first time I've met Mitch, but I can already testify that given that he's just back from Morocco and had probably surviving on very little sleep, he really is a ray of sunshine. I wouldn't be this cheery if that was me, that's for sure. So welcome, Mitch. Welcome to our lovely audience. Do, as usual, say where you are, who you are, and we'd love to hear from you. There'll be lots of opportunities for questions and interactions as we go, but we do just have half an hour, so let's get straight down to our chat. Now, Mitch, I've got so much I want to ask you, but let's start with the title of this session, which I called the Connection Come Back, because I'm a bit of a sucker for alliteration. And also I've noticed its connection with something that you speak about quite a bit in your posts. So am I being optimistic? Is there a connection come back? Is this wishful thinking? Tell me your thoughts.
I don't want to ruin a good alliteration, but I think not a comeback. It's just always been what our industry has been about. I think it's coming into contrast. So I would maybe call it the connection contrast with this sort of state of being human today. I think more than ever, we're simply aware that connection is almost in danger. It's in danger from AI, from these cheap tech solutions that are being shoved down our throats and told us we're supposed to marry an AI companion and that this AI digital audio guide is a storyteller. And it's also a threat from 5 years of trauma that we all lived and never processed through COVID, where we suddenly were trained to realize that algorithms and endless scrolls and vertical videos were the solution to our loneliness, our needs for purchasing, for relationship. And so I think the contrast with the world I live in, which is tourism, hospitality, is that the beating heart of it is connection, but you can't take it for granted that we just keep doing what we do in this industry the way we've done it and call it connection. I think because some of these technologies and some of these new consumer habits are evolving to the point where they're pretty good in terms of giving you facts. They're pretty good at entertaining you. Then what's beyond facts? What's beyond entertaining? What's beyond five-star service of just delivering a decent product? What's next? And I think that's the reinvention of connection. So I guess connection reinvention isn't alliteration, but it's something.
It's kind of something, yeah. No, that makes a lot of sense. So it's almost, yeah, it's reinventing how we connect. It's using, so not throwing all of these new technology tools out with the bathwater, but making sure that we don't lose sight of what it is to be human and what it is to have human relationships. Is that right? Have I got that right?
Yeah, but I think when we pose it that way, we make it almost kind of into a negative.
Mm.
For example, there's often this question of, well, what can't be replaced by technology? And I think that's kind of the wrong way to frame it, because it looks like all we're doing is like reacting to something that will get better and better and better and just take over more and more spheres of I guess human existence. Rather, I think we need, and by we I mean anybody that vaguely agrees with me, we need to stand as almost like a moral imperative or an ethical imperative for something that we truly believe in. Let's say if we believe in human connection, then we're not just waiting around until the moment when the app takes over my tour guiding career or whatever, but rather I continue to say, how can I keep elevating what it means to be human with my tour guests? That might look different if you're the front desk clerk at a hotel. For example, I can't just welcome somebody and give them their key and ask them how their trip was. So what can I do to elevate that front desk experience? If I'm a tour guide, I get in trouble, but for this, but it's no longer about what you know. It's no longer about the fact that you're a brilliant, hilarious personality and can fulfill 2 hours with a really, really great time. Guests will still have a great time, but I don't think that's elevating the kind of human connection that can happen there. And so I'm interested in like, what's next? What is more human? And maybe it's not what's next, but what actually is deeper, and can we get there with some of these points of contact that humans will continue to have with your travelers?
Okay, as you talk, these are deep questions, and yeah, I'm sure many of you will know that Mitch has a background in philosophy, and that's coming across even with the moral imperative stuff. So yeah, so big questions, deep questions. It'll be interesting to unpack some of this as we go on. But let's just say a quick hello to some folks. We've got a hello from Hang from London. Rory's watching. I think you're from Ireland, Rory, aren't you? Yep, from Belfast. Hello. Oh, thanks for brightening up our day. Oh, there we go. Thanks from all of us. Mitch, we're grateful that you're here. And from Sarah. Hello, Sarah from Paris, and Alex. Well, there's a question. Are you still fully human or part machine, Mitch, with your glasses there? Transhumanism, maybe?
Oh, let's see how far we get in this half hour.
Okay, so it would be great. I'd be really interested to hear audience responses to what Mitch was saying about human connection, and just thinking about how I suppose we can look at what is human connection, and how can we bring that sense of human connection to whatever our roles are in the travel and tourism field. Now, as this is the last Tour Pro Talks of the year, Mitch, I'd like to ask a question or two, but if we could maybe kind of keep just what you were saying there in the forefront of our minds. Can you have a look back over the year, over the last year, and what do you think have been kind of like big developments in tourism around this sort of central theme of connection? What's changed, or
Oh, what's changed? So I think if you look at these trend reports, one of the things that keeps coming up is, for example, the transformation of what luxury means,
Mm,
or, for example, the rise of hands-on activities, workshops. You look at Get Your Guides data from all the different OTAs, data in general is showing that like crafting, making, creating, doing, painting, running, whatever it might be, wellness is massively on the rise, although stagnating a little bit. What's behind the idea that luxury no longer means just a stuffy butler holding a tray with champagne as you enter into a stuffy room? Why is there the unstuffing of luxury? And why is there the additional extra layer of action and added on to the idea of a guided tour? And I think it's the same root cause, right? Which is that there's a yearning just like within humans of all different like economic ladder, moments on the economic ladder, that are like discovering a new set of needs that maybe they didn't realize that they had until now that they're slightly in danger. They're in danger from COVID. They're in danger from overwork. They're in danger from kind of like the economic imperatives that are ruling a lot of people's lives in the UK, in the United States, other parts of the world. It's like suddenly I can't take a trip for granted, for example, because I can't afford it, or suddenly I'm ridiculously filthy rich and I am bored by this hotel. It's two different sides of the same thing. Like, so what's missing? And so this word connection, I want to be clear, like, yes, we started out extremely philosophical, but it's stupidly practical. It comes down to what you're doing on your food tour or what your website looks like, right? And I think my beef with the tourism industry in general is that like a lot of the marketing agencies are pretty boring, and all they do is get really good at rigging Google, rigging Facebook, rigging the system, rigging SEO, AIEO, EIEIO, GEO, whatever these EOs are that we can't settle on. It's like they're great technicians and they're very poor storytellers. Likewise, websites have been like engineered for conversion, just getting that customer to click, tap, 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 buy. And that playbook is kind of getting thrown out because it's being rewritten with new developments. But also B, it's not meeting the needs of the customer in the same way. And I think that the smartest, most interesting brands that I'm seeing are reinventing the language. They're copywriting. Genevieve, you should be very busy right now because I think everybody needs new copywriting. Every 2 weeks for this entire year, I've been doing free website audits as part of the Tourpreneur community, and I'm largely shocked at how bad the operators' websites are at striking the human connection.
Mm.
And so I think you and I bonded briefly a while back over a phrase that I use all the time in these audits, which is connection before conversion. If
Mhm.
you are lucky enough to have somebody visiting your website in 2026, then you have struck gold already, a human. All right. So Alex, don't get snarky with me. If you have a human visiting a website, then that is the jackpot. So what are you doing with that moment? And it means that you need them to stop seeing you as just another, like, your website as a product delivery dissemination tool, and rather, welcome to my world, don't leave. And not because I have created the best series of nudges and winks to get me to keep clicking, but because I've told such a compelling story about who I am. And that's where I think niche wins. That's where I think in 2026 individuals win. I think the solo guide is in a much better position than the scaled tour operator that's offering highlights tours with a team of 35 tour guides. So I think the reinvention of connection is related to storytelling, is related to what you think you're doing when you have a customer in your web.
Mm. And I think what often gets in the way, it's really interesting there what you're saying about the sort of solo players actually having an advantage when it comes to that whole storytelling thing. Because I've actually worked with tour guides in the past who've like written their website using we almost like they're a corporation, and it's
Yeah.
because that whole fear of they don't want to seem like they're just one person on their own. They feel it would be more professional, more business-like, more credible to have
Mhm.
that kind of big business feel, when actually the opposite's true, isn't it?
I mean, we're living in like the weirdest time in the world right now because every large corporation is trying to look small and human and personal, and every small little entrepreneur is trying to look like this big behemoth.
Yeah.
And we, the smallies, I am always on the side of the small business because I think they're the most interesting. They can do the most unique, interesting things that cannot scale and that cannot be done by others. And so I just think, though, that there is this like just general mentality. And if you read a business book, probably from 15 years ago, it does say that, like, look bigger than you are, look more professional than you are, look more whatever. But that playbook is out the window. In 2026, that is not where you should be spending your energy. You should be spending your energy, if you're a tour operator, creating types of products where your guides can come alive as individuals and they're not just following a script, where your website highlights the personalities, you as the founder, your guides as a team, but not just, oh, they're from Vancouver and they love hiking and fishing. They're from no, like, what makes them tick, what makes you tick as a business. And leaning into that kind of storytelling in a way that makes them just say, why would I look anywhere else? And I'll give you an example. I can give you a lot of examples, but I know we're short on time. I was going on a holiday in May in Italy. I was going on a holiday because I just come back from work in Italy. And then my husband was like, why didn't you take me? And so I had to turn around and go back with him, and was looking for a spectacular lodging and something really special. And I don't know if you've ever gone on to booking.com and looked at Italian lodging, but it's a busy marketplace over
Mm.
there, wherever you go. And everything looks the same because it all starts out with like a bed shot or a breakfast shot or a zoomed in, playbook. And I'd go to the direct websites and each one was worse than the last. And then one place I stopped, I visited, went to the website, and they had a video, and that 2-minute video just destroyed me emotionally. And I can share the link with that later.
Oh.
And it was this, it was a husband and a wife. She had worked in PR. He's a philosopher and a psychiatrist. And all they did was start by entering into this green space. There's a dog, there's this beautiful breakfast spread, and then he's just writing. And then he just shares a little poetry, the poetry of his voice, of the specialness of the place. Didn't sell the hotel one bit, never showed a room. Instead, he just talked about his personal connection to the uniqueness of this village. And he became a character. We were just in this zoomed in little world of their relationship, their dogs, these little moments. And then at the end, this drone shot zoomed out and showed them on this cliffside. And I just left being like, why would I go anywhere else? Why would I continue and wonder if I can save 50 euros and get a larger bed type down the road, right? I just threw the analytical brain out my out of the window. And we've known this for years. Google, I remember, God, what was it called? It was emotion. I'd have to look it up, but Google had a report about this based on their data 20 years ago, 15 years ago. This is known. It's just for whatever reason, a lot of small businesses in tourism, hotels, tour operators, tour guides, they haven't quite understood that, or they haven't quite figured out how to tell their own story.
Yeah, that's so interesting because I mean, I just feel like we've been talking about storytelling for a long time now, and
Yeah.
it's just one of these buzzwords, but I do think people don't really know what it means or they're frightened of it for whatever reason. So yeah, audience, it would be great to hear from you, your perspectives on storytelling. Do you do it? Is it something you feel anxious about or weird about? And if you could share your experiences in the comments, that would be great. And we do have some questions here. And I did want to say quickly before we go on to some audience questions, as this is a special to festive edition of Tour Pro Talks. Yeah, I'm doing a wee competition today. So at the end of the session, I'll be asking Mitch to choose his favourite question. So the question that's made him think the hardest or that he's just liked is a question, and there'll be a prize. You'll win a Shetland delicacy, which I shall post to you myself. But with that in mind, let's go on to, well, this isn't actually a question. I think this is just a lovely comment from Anik. Thank you, Mitch, for this down-to-earth vibe. Feels like home. That is really lovely.
Can
Okay.
we pause on that for a minute? First of
Yeah.
all, Anik, I love that. Thank you. This should be a review of any guide that is out there leading a tour, and it shouldn't be they knew so much, they were so entertaining. Some of the best tour guides, and I mean, I've been a tour guide for 25 years. I led my first tour in 2001 in Paris. And I think back then in 2001, they knew so much was like a real compliment because you couldn't know anything on your own. If you were traveling over there, there was no Google, there was no smartphones, there was no nothing. 2026, the compliment should be feels like home. I felt like I was with a friend, but better than a friend who cared about me, the most knowledgeable friend that I know, but also that I was welcomed into their world. And I just got back from Morocco literally 12 hours ago. And the tour guide, who's a friend of mine, Shema from Cultural Caravans, shout out to her, female-owned business in Morocco, but also she grew up in Marrakesh. And the tour that I asked her to give was, I wanted a deeply personal tour. I didn't want, this is the famous garden, this is the famous madrasa. Forget the madrasa. It's a soulless building unless you breathe soul into it. You have to pay admission. And it's really hard to breathe soul into something when you see 30 other people from the Netherlands and Turkey and the US staring around, taking photos at this beautiful, bland tile work. I'm not negating the madrasa, but the Eiffel Tower, a famous madrasa, whatever it is, needs so much work from you, the guide, to make it more magical. What needs no work is when Shema took a corner and she said, look at the craziness of this street, of all of the artisans. And we take one little corner turn and suddenly you're in a different world. And she's like, what do you feel? And we're like, peace. And she said, what I feel is at home because this is the street I grew up on. And she talked about what it was like to grow up as a child on this little street. You knew all of your neighbors. Twice during that moment of a visit, even though she hadn't lived there on that street for 15, 20 years, she was stopped by neighbors who remembered her and they hugged her. And one of them invited us in, a group of 20, into their courtyard to see where they do laundry. That is a reinvention of what a guided tour is. That is an extremely hard thing for a globally scaled multinational walking tour company to do, but it's extremely easy if there's just one Anik and you're welcoming people into your home. But that changes what you think you're doing on a guided tour. And I promise you, not a single one of us at the end of that tour was like, I really wish we had visited the top 3 things that Google says we must visit on a tour. Instead, we were just like, wow, what just happened here?
Yeah, that is a lovely example. And I think it just sums up that difference of, as a tourist, being on the outside, looking in, and almost being, part of the picture, being on the inside, like, that scene inside where people are doing their laundry. It's just completely different position to be in, isn't it? And so much more memorable because of it. Now we have a comment from Rory from Belfast. What you can't replace from my point of view as a tour guide are personal experiences and bringing to life what guests are seeing, whether that be scenery to actual events that happened. I'm open to learn how AI, etc., can add to my tours. Remember, your repeat customers come back because of the relationship you have built with them. Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for that, Rory. Sorry, Mitch, did you want to say something about that?
I always want to say something, but I can keep moving on if there's more. But yes,
Okay.
I mean, of course.
We have a question from Hang. Okay. With AI flooding the internet with travel content that looks real but isn't, many travelers end up cross-checking everything but still feel unsure about who to trust. What do you think tour operators can do to signal what's genuinely human and reduce that hesitation so travelers move closer to a yes?
Yeah, I mean, this is really important. And I think, you talk about the buzzword of storytelling, Genevieve. And yes, I mean, even the word connection now is overused. The word experience is overused. No word works anymore because things just move too fast and spread too quickly. But I do think storytelling has changed in meaning because I think there's this old idea of storytelling and especially as a guide, which is, oh, tell me a story, kind of like be fun, be entertaining, make me laugh, make me cry. Sure. But I would say the fundamental change is that storytelling isn't anymore objective. I never think there's such thing as objective storytelling, but there is this idea of I'm sharing the facts and the dates and the architect and making it come alive and the special events that happen there. I think the future and the best kind of storytelling is subjective and personal. It's from an acknowledged point of view that says, this is who I am in this place. And it's not meant to be about you, but it's meant to bring people into a dialogue with who they are, who you are, what this place is, and not pretend that there is just this single objective, level-headed, just the facts, ma'am, story that you can tell about a place. Because whose perspective are you telling it from? I think about this in terms of New York City all the time. This idea that there's a story to tell about the Empire State Building or about Times Square. There, of course, there's not. If you're a shop owner or a native who's lived there through the 1970s, or a new transplant, or an immigrant worker that works in a gift shop, or you had your first job there as a singing waitress, every one of those is a point of view that brings you into the place. And I think the more you can acknowledge that, the more the place comes alive, as Rhodey said. But coming alive means, the first time I stepped foot in Times Square, I hated it. And it was because I was told to hate it. I was a snobby 25-year-old. This is literally me when I moved to New York City. I was a snobby 25-year-old that had just left a PhD program in Paris, and I knew I needed to hate Times Square. And I stepped foot in there. And then I looked around and I was like, actually, this is kind of amazing. Actually, just privately, I was like, I kind of like it. I like being here because I feel like I'm an introvert, and yet I'm connected to the world. I felt like I was truly at the center of the world. Now, 20 years later, I hate it again. Uh, and and I tell people of my journey, of my reaction to this, because the personal is the universal. If I say a blanket statement about this iconic place, there's no connection there. The connection is the personal journey I went on. And then you can rub up against it. You can be for it. You can be against it. You can react to it. And we can have a human relationship about the place, rather than I'm a passive listener listening to this objective, entertaining story about all of the interesting historical things that have happened at this location. This is what I spend my life doing, trying to get guides to snap out of that mentality. And it's very hard because, especially in Europe, they go to school for 4 years, learning the opposite of that in general. So there you go.
Yeah, so you're really wherever you're talking about whatever you're talking about, you're it's not being afraid to interpret it through the prism of your own experience, your own humanity, and then giving your guests that sliver of humanity, something that resonates with them and that they can connect to. So you have some kind of dialogue, and it's not just like a passive one-way thing.
I was a tour guide in New York City for a long time, and I would go to Chinatown and I would talk about the Chinese.
Mm.
Now I look at that and I'm embarrassed. And I'm embarrassed because it's not that I can't, because of course, like, I can share the history and the development of it,
Mm.
but I realized I was becoming this authority on the Chinese story and experience, the Chinese American immigration story in New York City. And it was, and now I kind of just think, what was I doing then? I was trying to be this omniscient, because I thought it was about my knowledge,
Mm.
storyteller in an entertaining, knowledgeable way about a place. And you know what I did? I realized that, first of all, I had to say, there are two Chinatowns. There's the Chinatown that you and me are going to see today. And then there's the Chinatown of the lived experience of being a Chinese American in this space. And they're two completely different worlds. And one world will not ever fully understand the other world, because that world wasn't allowed to understand our world. And we were told never to engage with that world. And the development of Chinatown was a world of protection against the outsiders that didn't want them. The only time we passed a law by Congress that said you are excluded as a nationality was against the Chinese Exclusion Act. They were not allowed to buy property, not allowed to marry a white person in New York City. And so Chinatown developed its own mayor, its own city council, its own real estate, its own banks. And it's why today you still see the largest ethnic enclave in a single space that is still there today. And it's almost like a hug and an embrace that says we take care of our own, even when the rest of the city doesn't want us. And notice there, first of all, a little bit of emotion, a little bit of perspective, but I've begun that story as a guide by saying, you're going to get a Mitch version of this because of the following reasons. But that wasn't a story about me, but rather using that perspective to enter into my unique take on this. And that's going to look very different if a Chinese American told the story of being a third generation immigrant in Chinatown. And so acknowledging perspective, and I want to bridge that with Tara Bush's comment. Hi, Tara. She's saying, and maybe you can pop this up, but
Yeah, I will.
I'm processing this discussion as permission to play it less safely. Yes. If you take one word away from this conversation, which I know we're nearing the end of, it should not be connection. It should be weird. What makes you tick? Put it out there, even at a risk to what you think is professional. I do it every day. I say things I probably shouldn't. I do things and live with a little bit of risk of vulnerability, but also I put my weirdness on display. I'm a weird guy. I majored in philosophy. I never studied tourism. I'm gay. There's a lot of weird things that are not your like usual kind of LinkedIn fodder. And I only know this because for several years I screwed this up. I thought I should be talking about SEO and brand and all of these things that every single day you scroll through LinkedIn and see. I kind of thought I had to like play the game and fit in and be the person. And it's only been, I don't know, this past year, especially since I'm so angry at AI now. But I love Alex Bainbridge. I love the human side of him, not the robot side of his profile. But I only really started to feel alive and like I was delivering value and like I was being true to myself and like I was delivering and showing up in a way that I felt proud of. The minute I said, what is nobody really talking about? Or what can I talk about in a way that others can't? And realizing that involves knowing who you are and leaning into yourself as a unique repository of a lot of different kind of synapses that have all congealed in a unique Tara way, and putting that out there in that uniqueness is the future. The future is personalized, is individual, and is weird. I think weirdness is what the future is about, because ask ChatGPT or any of these large language models that are just like the combined averageness of the banality of human creation and creativity. You got to get weird now.
Which I think is reassuring news for all of us, really.
It should be good news. It should be
It's
good news.
It absolutely is. Somebody just this morning said to me something I thought really interesting, which ties in with what you were just saying, Mitch. We were talking about posting on social media, and she said that the best thing she's ever posted on social media were the things that she had never said out loud. So just the
Ooh,
thoughts she had in her head, but like, and it takes courage to do that, I
it
think.
does.
But yeah, absolutely worth doing. Now, I think we can fit in. Oh gosh, we're over time. Just realised, can we fit in one more question?
Yeah, of course.
Oh, thank you so much, Mitch. Last question then. All my tours are related to personal experience. I would love to know of a site or sites where I can learn more of how to utilise modern technology to my advantage.
Oh, that's a great one, Rory. Especially since I run Trip School and sell a course on tour technology. But before you go down this world, what do you want? What is it adding? Like, what is it adding for you? What is the technology going to provide? If you can't answer the question in a really like necessary way, then why are you pursuing modern technology to your advantage? Now, I will say, if you are an independent professional tour guide, you should have a well-crafted, excellent website that tells the story of you with great copywriting, great imagery, and captivates people and brings them in, and has modern booking software that has live bookable availability and not just a WhatsApp number. That should be, I think, your basic priority. I haven't visited your site. I don't know if you even have one, but I work with thousands of independent professional tour guides. That's my life, and small to medium-sized tour business operators. And most of them fail on that basic level of like, your tour is incredible. I can't book you. I'm an American. I'm not going to trust a website with just a WhatsApp number down there. And, getting back to the earlier point about how do I get people to trust you? It's Maslow's hierarchy of needs. First of all, does this look like a scam website? Um, is there a trust factor that is independent of who you are on your website, so that I know that you're not just the best, but rather something outside says that? It could be you've been seen in PR, you've been discovered in Condé Nast, or you've been talked about in Condé Nast Traveler or some other thing. You're a member of a guild, a board, an association. Put those logos on there. Share reviews. But then going up that hierarchy of needs, that's just basic level one. Number one, the customer is like, is this a scam? Number two, they're like, is this person for me? And if your site is just, we offer a 2-hour guided tour of Glasgow, we offer a 4-hour amazing pirate tour of the caverns. Okay, I'm going to go check 80 more websites and see if there's a better price or something with more reviews, right? But what I love that you said, Rory, is that all your tours are related to personal experience. Then lean into that. You as a character. The number one rated walking tour of the Freedom Trail in Boston, Massachusetts, is just a guy named Mike. It's not a giant, large corporation. It's just Mike. And Mike's breathed a new life, a new kind of humor into the tour that really captivates people. New York City, filled with so many highlights tours of this and that, what the customer wants. What are the tours that I think are thriving and are most interesting? It's the sandwich tour, the bagel tour, the rat tour. These are people who have passions, and they're finding an audience just based on them putting out that passion as not a product, but as a world to enter into. People say, I want to be part of that world. I just want to be around that person. And what you sell them is almost secondary. So don't play the game of the big companies. Lean into your weirdness and your own passions and find your zone of genius.
Wow. Lean into your weirdness and your own passions and find your zone of genius. I think that is a wonderful way to end this session, and almost like a Christmas gift to you all. Take that away and see what you can do with it. And yeah, we look forward to seeing the results. But thank you all to the great audience for your comments and questions. Thank you so much to you, Mitch, because that was wonderful. I'll be summarizing all that you've said. If anyone's wanting some takeaways in writing, you'll be getting that on Tuesday. Mitch, were there any standout questions to win the Shetland delicacy, or should we just send prizes to everybody? What do you think? Everybody who asked a question. I think they're all in the UK, so that would be okay.
I will say a lot of them weren't necessarily questions, but
Yeah.
I would choose Tara Bush because I think she really hit on it. That encouraging your guides to risk showing their full selves, even if it's a miss for people in the group. Don't be held hostage by this idea that one-star review or something just like tanks my business. Every tour, I've now run 4 tour companies in my life: a day tour company, a multi-day tour company, an educational student travel company. I have never run a company where I had to ask for reviews, and they've all been successful. And this most recent one does millions of dollars of revenue. Never once asked or needed a review. And it's because I looked at the game and I said, that sucks. And I said, what can I do that isn't the game? That's a different kind of game. It's like the tour operators that I know that hate me when I mention that they're selling tours on Pinterest because nobody else is looking over there. Look somewhere new. This is a big world. This is the most growingest thing in the world, for better or worse, a lot worse. But don't play the game that everybody else is playing. We're a young industry. When you look at the business models of our industry, so much is being reinvented now. So at all of those types of risks that are going to come into your head, what if nobody buys me? What if I never sell? What if I get a bad review? Go with your heart, or you're going to get burnt out. Because I deal every 3 days with coaching a tour operator or a guide who is burnt out. And usually they're just waiting to receive permission to do things differently. So I nominate Tara.
Brilliant. Well, Tara, I will be in touch to arrange delivery of your prize. Congratulations. But thank you to everybody who contributed. Thank you again, Mitch. I think the last words you shared there were truly inspirational. I know many of us will be approaching our planning for 2026, bearing this at the forefront of our minds. So thank you. Thank you, everybody. If you don't already follow Mitch, I'm sure you probably already do, but you can follow him on LinkedIn, and I'll share his details in next week's newsletter. So thank you again, and see you next year. Thanks again, Mick.
Thank you, everyone.